Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Back for another week, boys.
Another week. Guys, I thought, with the start of this week, I thought, fuck, it is a slow news week.
Nothing's happening. Boring week.
I had to dig up that article about the lady dying in her coffin, but then waking up. I was like, I guess this is the show this week. This is one story.
Yep.
Boy, was I wrong.
But Adam, if you pray to the news gods will provide. There is no such thing as a boring week in Australian politics, and that has been evidenced. Should we start with notorious shitbag Silvio Berlusconi, or should we jump straight into the David Van Lidia Thorpe
got a little
stuff?
bit prepared for Berlusconi.
I did.
You can do it. I just want you to go. Just let it out.
I just need to be me, and me. George needs to talk. I do have some Italian heritage, as you may know, and
what
it is.
I'm never talking about Berlusconi or having an opinion on him ever before.
Well, I've never really mentioned it on the show because Italian politics is just kind of famously sordid. I don't know if anyone's necessarily surprised by,
the country that founded the mafia is somehow.
Yeah, we didn't found it, but we certainly perfected it. The Italians, but. Yeah, so noted billionaire and underage person sex haver Silvio Berlusconi has alas departed to the big bunga bunga party in the sky at age 86, having never really had any accountability for any of his many, many crimes. So for those of you who don't know, Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi was a notable shitbag. Italy's had a lot of shitbags, dating back to Caesar. We've had Italy's had many shitbags over the millennia, and Silvio Berlusconi is notable even amongst them. He was a billionaire businessman, on and off prime minister over a couple of decades, and recently passed away from leukemia that he'd been developing for some time. Now, unfortunately, he wasn't fired out of a cannon directly into the sun, as would have been my preferred way of dealing with Silvio Berlusconi. Alas, you can't always get what you want, but sometimes you might find you get what you need.
Well, they got it all done pretty quickly. He died earlier in the week, and then they had the funeral 4 days later or something. It was a whole get him out.
Yeah, well, a death of Stalin farce kind of thing. They're we all know this is coming. So, how do we prepare the funeral without letting them know we're preparing the funeral?
I think it's one of those things where it's his body was so filled with Botox and other kinds of chemicals that, in reality, he could have been preserved indefinitely. He just kind of be preserved in his own juices, but it's probably best to get it all squared away nice and quick so nobody asks too many questions. Berlusconi, as I mentioned, very famous for his bunga bunga parties, otherwise known.
What is a bunga bunga party?
It's an eyes wide shut, drug-fueled sex party with the world's elite.
Okay.
When people imagine what was happening at Jeffrey Epstein's fucking
that was the next
sex parties. That's literally exactly what was happening. Rich and powerful people in Italy's elite hanging out and
it's cool because they're European, right?
It's cool. Yeah, no, it's it's got everyone's tan. It's a fun flavor about it, so it's not a crime, the crime that it actually definitely is.
Yeah, I've seen the biopic of Caligula. That's just that's just what's done in Italy, right?
Yeah,
Italian figures.
I think Silvio Berlusconi probably drew a little too much inspiration from Roman dictators of times past. But yeah, so one of the accusations was that Silvio Berlusconi had sex with an underage prostitute during his time. You'll notice there's a lot of crimes. There's actually a Wikipedia article called
The Crimes of Berlusconi.
Almost. It's pretty close. I'm scrolling all the way up because it's a big article. The trials and allegations involving Silvio Berlusconi. So there were things of which he was convicted, like tax evasion, and then things of which he was convicted and then acquitted. So false accounting, another false accounting, judicial bribery, bribery of the Guardia di Financia, so the financial guard, so like essentially like bribing tax officials, sort of acquisitions of land and companies that actually weren't allowed to go through in the way that they were sort of described on the tax forms. So all of those things were acquitted. And then there were ones where like crimes which he committed, and then they like, because he was in charge, he changed the law.
He just made them not crimes.
Well, he just made those things not crimes in order to get out of them, which is fucking wild. Like, that is some Caesar level shit. It's like, how could it be a crime when you have no legs?
That's crazy. Like, Nixon could never. Like, that's next level beyond when the president does it, it's not illegal. That's more, no, when the prime minister does it, he makes it not illegal.
I made it not illegal. Yeah.
This is, I guess, where the separation of powers in the US are a little bit more sort of distinct perhaps than they are in sort of Western sort of democracies, where you've got actually, who is the head of state of Italy? Do they have a king still?
Well,
I actually don't know.
Prime minister, and I think they have a president as well, but the president's more just like a figurehead from what I understand.
State of Italy. We're going to come back to you really quickly.
Yeah, a king of Italy doesn't ring any bells for me.
President of Italy. There is an Italian. There are Italian principalities and like bloodlines that are still like a thing. Like, you can still be like a prince of Italy, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, getting off topic,
so there were...
You could be a king of Mykonos, which is pretty close.
So there's... I encourage you to go and check out this extremely long Wikipedia article titled Trials and Allegations Involving Silvio Berlusconi. It is long. Like I said, there's... false accounting and bribery and, tax evasion.
Received mafia money?
Yeah, so there was an allegation. So he rose to prominence by, being a property developer in Italy, in northern Italy in the 60s and 70s. So... I don't know if there's somehow that mafia money got involved in property development in the 60s and 70s in Italy. But yes, it is alleged that there was mafia money involved in that. And then he basically created an internal TV station for these apartments. And then that became its own runaway success, and that's where he ended up making his millions. So the reason that he was able to sort of go in and out of Italian politics is because he had 90% control over the media, like more insidious and more control than even someone like Rupert Murdoch over the military, over the media apparatus. And so it was constantly like, he's like, yeah, you got me this time, but I'll be back. Like zombie Berlusconi, his hands sticking up out of the grave. Hey. So he was just this like notoriously, like wildly corrupt shitbag that was just constantly in and out of Italian politics. And
why did they keep voting for him?
Because he's like, it's kind of like Trump. He's like, it's just a bit of fun. Like,
it's just hilarious lol.
It's just, doing it for the lols.
Uses Botox very well.
So he was, it's funny because he was kind of like a populist leader, like had this very like conservative bent and, really hated communists and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, like the content on his television channels was incredibly lurid and like sexual, like, like topless, people on like regular, Friday night primetime television. Like he,
SBS at 11 o'clock, but it's 7 o'clock.
He just made Italian TV the fucking dog's breakfast sex mess that it is now, and people love that because prior to that it was all very Catholic, right? Very sort of like strict Catholic kind of programming, and he basically came in here with this wave of populism and sex and kind of like shook the whole industry up, and that's how he was able to get so popular. So
I mean, it's no wonder because apparently, and this I did not know this about him, he started as a cruise ship crooner.
Yeah.
That was his first like gig. He was on cruise ships singing. Can you imagine? Like,
I guess, like, world leaders have had odd beginnings.
Stranger
sometimes.
Jobs.
I saw some like
that might be the least offensive thing that he did throughout his entire career. Was be a cruise ship singer. Anyway,
just wow! Like it just a insane history on Berlusconi. Like, obviously, I think a lot of it came to my attention this past week in all the obituaries of all the crazy shit that he did.
Well, it's funny that you say obituary. I've written a little bit of a fuck eulogy for Silvio Berlusconi if you'd like to hear some of it.
Soundtrack.
Yeah, got a little soundtrack going if you don't mind.
Okay, I do mind. Let's go.
Okay, so
no pressure.
Well, when I say I wrote it, I mean ChatGPT wrote it. So
what the?
One cannot speak of Berlusconi without mentioning his notorious bunga parties, which came emblematic of his moral failings. These parties were tainted with allegations of exploitation, debauchery, and the objectification of women. Such behaviour is not only morally reprehensible, but also undermines the principles of equality and respect that we hold dear in civilised society. Furthermore, Berlusconi faced multiple charges related to corruption, tax evasion, and fraud. His influence over the media empire he built allowed him to shape public opinion and manipulate the political landscape, raising serious concerns about the erosion of democratic values and the impartiality of institutions. In paying our respects today, let us remember the victims of Berlusconi's transgression. This is going real hard on the crimes, this eulogy. Let us remember those who suffered as a consequence of his abuse of power, his disregard of the rule of law, and his exploitation of the system for personal gain. While it is important to acknowledge the positive impacts of any person's life, we cannot overlook the darker side of Berlusconi's legacy. Today, as we bid farewell to this duffel bag of shit, let us not forget the lessons that his tumultuous reign taught us, reminding ourselves of the need of integrity, transparency, and accountability in our political leaders. May we strive for a future where the mistakes of the past are not repeated, and where those in positions of power are held to the highest standards of ethical conduct. Farewell, Silvio Berlusconi. May your legacy serve as a stark reminder of the importance of justice and the pursuit of truth in the face of power. Amen.
Amen.
I noticed to which you promptly asked ChatGPT shorter and in the voice of John Oliver. I don't think
it wasn't as good.
Go into how well it did that.
What was the initial prompt?
Read a brief eulogy for Silvio Berlusconi with a focus on his crimes.
Oh, right. So when you say, it's focusing a lot on his crimes, you told it to.
That was me. I did. But in all fairness, he did do a lot of crimes. There was a lot of material to work with there.
100%. I find it funny that it's...
I couldn't hear that, but anyway.
I could hear that. But the importance, while it's important to, respect the positives in any person's life, I mean, that's like going to say, look, we all love the good things Hitler did. So let's talk about the Holocaust.
We all agree the artwork was pretty existent.
Yeah.
It definitely existed. Goodbye, Silvio. You will not be missed, you duffel bag of shit.
I don't know how to transition now to the next thing.
I dare you. I dare you to transition into another news story.
Speaking of duffel bags of shit, the Liberal Party. Allegedly. So this week...
by the way, we're just going to sprinkle a little allegedly all over this whole section. This whole section's going to have we're going to call the episode allegedly. Everything, just make sure
we've already done that.
Just hammer the allegedly across all of this because none of these allegations have been proven.
There'll be some innuendo, but not a whole lot of facts.
Yeah. So even if I believe all of the allegations at face value, we still need to say that they have not been proven in a court of law and they are alleged. So
they're alleged.
The Liberal Party was on a tear this week, and they said, you know what we really think will work to our political benefit? If we try and take down Labor member Katy Gallagher over the Brittany Higgins situation. So basically what happened is in a Senate estimates hearing in 2021, Katy Gallagher said something to the effect of about the Brittany Higgins interview being aired on the project that she had no prior knowledge of that. Now, it turns out she did have some prior knowledge of that. Linda Reynolds was suggesting that she knew weeks beforehand, and the Liberal Party was going to a really big concerted effort to make this look like the whole Brittany Higgins thing was just a Labor beat-up against a poor, innocent, defenseless Liberal Party that had nothing to do with a monstrous cover-up. So that was the accusation that they leveled at Katy Gallagher. She clearly did... whether the allegation is that she misled Parliament. Okay, so her statement that she knew nothing about it in that 2021 Senate estimates hearing is not true. She did have some prior information about this interview going to air. Having information about an interview going to air is not the same thing as being part of a coordinated, political hatchet job to like take down the LNP. That's not what happened. So in doing all of this, the Liberal Party has scored a most spectacular own goal in that not only have they failed to take down Katy Gallagher, one of their own senators, Liberal David Van, has actually lost his job as a result of the whole schmozzle. So, first of all, what do you guys make of the Katy Gallagher thing? I personally think it's a massive beat up. Like, I don't think the people who weren't in power and had nothing to do with the allegations and whose offices were not the location of the alleged crime should really bear any of the responsibility. Like, they were in opposition at the time. They had nothing to do with it. They weren't involved in the cover-up. Like, I don't see how I don't see why the LNP was trying to go after Katy Gallagher at this time. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Doesn't make sense to you guys.
There's a bit of a Bruce Luhrmann resurgence, I guess, at the moment, in the sense that he
did an interview recently, right?
Yeah. So there's
60 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. There's sort of, he's trying to, I guess, came back into frame a little bit as like, maybe I was hard done by. Of course,
were
the whole,
you?
The whole
Were
outcome. Were you? Yeah. The whole outcome of the for reference to Brittany Higgins situation, where she basically accused Bruce of rape. They went to trial. Did he sue someone? Was that how it worked? I can't remember now.
Well, no, I think there was some defamation sort of stuff coming.
It wasn't actually a criminal trial in the end. It was a defamation trial, wasn't it?
I think there was talk of defamation. I don't know where that ended up.
I thought what criminal trial was happening was thrown out from juror misconduct.
Yes, so the Brittany Higgins thing. So Brittany Higgins, there was a criminal trial of Bruce Luhrmann into the Brittany Higgins allegations of rape, and there was juror misconduct, and the suggestion was that they weren't going to go ahead and re-prosecute, given how traumatic the initial proceedings had been to Brittany Higgins. And there was some suggestion that her mental health was not faring well as a result of going through this process, and they didn't want to re-traumatize her and put her through it again. So they said, we're not going to prosecute. And then I remember there was some talk from Bruce Luhrmann's side about prosecuting someone for defamation. I don't know if it was one of the news networks or something like that. There was,
I don't know if it went ahead, but yeah.
Anyway, so he's kind of come back. My point being is, after that, after being not found not guilty and not found anything,
not found anything.
Well, nothing.
Declined to prosecute.
He's sort of, I guess, coming back into frame a little bit in the media, especially. I think you look at things like the Herald Sun, the Australian, and Sky News. A lot of Sky News, in particular, like if you
there's a coordinated effort to try and rehabilitate his image and reframe the whole thing. It's just a Me Too beat up kind of thing, right?
So I guess what had happened was, in terms of the knowledge that Katy Gallagher had, she was told in confidence by Brittany Higgins and her partner,
Shiraz,
at the time,
David Shiraz.
David Shiraz, that about what happened. And she was told to keep that to herself, which she
it wasn't not so much that it was about what happened, but that there was an interview coming up about it on the project. Before, and she was told about it before it aired.
Yeah,
but like,
and
again,
I mean, maybe Brittany Higgins
so what?
I mean, and maybe she was just sort of, trying to sort of see politically what that would do. Maybe, who knows? But like, it's hardly misleading the parliament.
And really sort of like, who cares? Because like, if you're telling someone, like you're telling a Labor Party member, like, they don't have to tell, like, yes, while there's colleagues in Parliament when people talk about it, because you're working together to, like, supposed to pass legislation or debate legislation and all that sort of stuff. Like, it is in no way a Labor Party member's responsibility to be like, oh, hey, yo, Linda, what's happening? Just heard this little thing is maybe going to be happening.
I don't think there's any
head start on damage control. Like
what the Murdoch media is trying to suggest, as far as I can tell, is that this whole thing is a beat up, and that it was, and Dutton said as much, that there was a coordinated attempt from Labor. Here we go. Opposition leader Peter Dutton told the coalition party meeting it was an, quote, open and shut case, unquote, that Gallagher had misled the Senate. Quote, it is increasingly clear that a group of Labor operatives conspired to maximise the damage. It was absolutely brazen. Labor used an alleged rape victim for political purposes, unlike me in this exact moment, Peter Dutton. That's definitely not what I'm doing, is using an alleged rape victim for political purposes. Not me, Peter Dutton, 2023.
So what Gallagher said is that, well, she didn't tell Penny Wong, she didn't tell Anthony Albanese, she didn't tell anyone else.
Yeah, there's no evidence of that actually occurring.
How therefore could she have been conspiring? I mean, whether or not she did, I don't actually. That's what she's told.
But also, even if they did, I would kind of expect an opposing political party to, like, if the other party gets accused of covering up a rape, I would expect the other side to make hay while the sun is shining on that. Like, that is, like, regardless of politics, you should just be doing your best to expose any kind of cover up like that. So I don't understand how this is like. This is just like the biggest galaxy brain, flip it and reverse it, I'm rubber, you're glue fucking nonsense that the LNP has tried to pull here. And it's resulted in accusations of one of their own senators, David Van, which we'll talk about in a sec.
I don't know, so it really feels like to me like they were gearing up for a game of 4D chess when what we're actually playing is Jenga and the whole tower just fell down.
Yeah, congrats, you won. And now, everything's coming out. So
Van was in the Senate. Van was sort of making a bit of a speech, I guess, about the issue and various standards and yada yada yada. And then Lidia Thorpe, our favourite no more green senator, firebrand.
She's kind of growing on me after the events of this week. So I'm not a fan of Lidia Thorpe, but these sound like credible.
She started interjecting
credible allegations that she's brought to Parliament about the conduct of David Van, Liberal senator. And so we're going to play the clip of him interjecting. So what she did was she accused him of sexual assault, but then due to the rules of the Senate, you're not allowed to sort of use the protections that you have. So if you're in the Senate, you have a protection that prevents you from being, it's called parliamentary privilege, and that prevents you from being sued for things that you say in the Senate. So it encourages robust debate that you're able to have in the Senate without necessarily having you, be, forced to be, to have a chilling effect by being accused of defamation or things like that. Now, you're not allowed to impugn the character of other senators while you do that. So she levels this accusation against David Van and then withdraws it. But then she tells a story later on about an unnamed member of parliament who harassed her and, did all these things. So we'll sort of go through it piece by piece. So here's the bit with David Van, and he's talking about, he was making comments about the Sex Discrimination Commissioner's report on parliamentary workplaces and talking about how we need to do better on how workplaces treat women in regards to sexual assault. And Lidia Thorpe felt as though she needed to speak up in regards to his comments. So let's hear that.
Senator Reynolds and throw mud across the chamber while claiming indemnity and innocence.
Senator Thorpe, please, Senator Thorpe. Senator Thorpe, please. Senator Thorpe, I've called you to order. Please be at order.
Withdraw that comment, please.
Well, I didn't hear the comment, but Senator Thorpe, please just withdraw. Senator Thorpe, please withdraw. Senator Thorpe, this is not assisting. Senator Thorpe, I'll ask you to withdraw. To consider withdrawing that. Thank you.
The discourse in this chamber and elevate how we treat each other. Transparency, honesty.
Order, Senator Thorpe.
Relay that I'm feeling really uncomfortable when a perpetrator is speaking
Senator Thorpe,
about violence.
Senator Thorpe, that's inappropriate and reflected pulling the member, and I have to ask you to withdraw that.
I can't, because this person
Senator Thorpe, I would just warn you at this point,
sexually assaulted me,
Senator Thorpe,
and the Prime Minister had to remove him from his office.
Senator
and to
Thorpe,
have him talking about this today is an absolute disgrace.
I have to, Senator Thorpe, I have to call you to order. I'm going to have to refer that to the President, I think. I'm going to refer it to the President rather than, I'm just looking at the leaders.
Okay, so.
Yeah. Good on her, I say.
I am. Yep.
Like, I mean, I don't know. Just because the very discussion around here is like actually like listening to listening to survivors and all that sort of stuff, and that, you know, and yes, that the process, like that whole time, the process, quote unquote, was telling her to, like, shut up,
silence,
down, let the man keep talking while you try to stand up for yourself, and she didn't. So yeah, good.
So there was that.
With what comes later. So,
when it first happened, I was like, my initial reaction was like, she's lost it. She's absolutely lost it. Like, she's lost her marbles. What is she screaming about?
I was waiting for the shitstorm of just news being like, here we go, Senator Thorpe's like annoying people again, and da-da-da-da-da, which thankfully I haven't seen happen in this case, which is, I think, good.
Yes, but it's only because other women have come out with similar kinds of stories that would...
Well...
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's like I'm ashamed to say that was my first reaction as well. Like, here we go, Lidia Thorpe going off about something again. And then Amanda Stoker came out and said, David Van, you know, groped me several times at a party, which I told him was not on. And then there was a third allegation later on in the week from an unnamed individual who said there were similar allegations against David Van as well. So it's like, it was only once like more people came out with similar stories that I was like, oh, okay, this is like something we should really seriously be looking at. And I'm kind of like, I'm kind of a little bit ashamed of that. That's not a great response from myself.
I was thinking, like, while more stories of, more allegations have come out, which further lead credence to this, it's also that shouldn't matter. But...
Well, my brain was like, surely there can't be anything else they haven't pulled out from under the rug. Surely we've exposed it all over the last... that was my thought was like, there can't be any more.
No, there's surely not. Surely there aren't any additional scandals. Surely we're scandaled out. We've used all the scandal quota for the entire year, surely.
That was literally my thought process. Like, it just sounds too, like, after all the stuff with Brittany Higgins and all the stuff over the last like 3 or 4 years that's been dragged out and we've gone through and everyone said we must do better, surely not something else like 6 months later.
So
David Van then turned around.
David Van immediately turns around and rebukes this in the moment, says none of it's true. Oh, let's hear that.
Reject that statement, that disgusting statement, outright. It is just a lie, and I reject it.
Sorry, Senator Van.
Sorry, I withdraw the word lie. It's just not true.
It's not a lie. It's not true.
Wow, that is that's some interesting. I don't know. I guess the senatorial code of conduct or whatever.
Because he's calling her a liar.
Say that someone else is a liar.
Yeah.
But like, it's like you can say that what they said is not true, but I guess the distinction is to say that someone is lying or is a liar implies intent.
Impugns their character,
doesn't it? Because I guess you can be saying something that is not true that you believe to be true, I guess is the...
Okay, so Lidia Thorpe then that evening withdraws those comments, okay? And then she comes back the next day with telling her story without necessarily naming the person who was responsible.
Back up. Between that, though, it then came out that he had been told to move offices.
Well, so here's the thing. He goes, none of that's true. That's all completely false. And then it's like,
vehemently denied that anything happened.
The office
did move offices because she told me that I made her uncomfortable.
That did happen.
But that did happen, except I didn't make her uncomfortable. But I did move offices because she told me that she did, but I didn't do it. But I did.
So then that happened. That was reported. And then she got up the next day and was able to have her piece.
Just an absolute shit show. Anyway, so here's Lidia Thorpe giving her account of what, being inappropriately touched by a random person who shan't be named.
When I started, I was a new senator. As all women that have walked the corridors of this building know, it is not a safe place. You are often alone in long corridors with no windows and in stairwells hidden from view where there are no cameras. This was my new workplace. This is a workplace women in this building know. I experienced sexual comments and was inappropriately propositioned by powerful men. One man followed me and cornered me in a stairwell, and most of this was witnessed by staff and fellow members of Parliament. No one witnessed what happened in the stairwell, as there are no cameras in stairwells. I know there are others that have experienced similar things and have not come forward in the interests of their careers and fear they would be presented to the world by the media in the same way that I have been today. There are different understandings of what amounts to sexual assault. What I experienced was being followed, aggressively propositioned, and inappropriately touched. I was afraid to walk out of the office door. I would open the door slightly and check the coast was clear before stepping out. It was to the degree that I had to be accompanied by someone whenever I walked inside this building. That is how the Greens supported me, and I thank them for that. To me, it was sexual assault, and the government at the time recognised it as such. At the time, I spoke to the President of the Senate about it. I spoke to my colleagues about it. I spoke to the Sex Discrimination Commissioner, Kate Jenkins, about it during her inquiry. I spoke to senior leaders in the Liberal Party and was assured the Prime Minister was informed. At the time, I was convinced that the government believed me. Their actions in immediately moving the person's office reassured me that they understood the seriousness of what I experienced.
Right. So
extremely grim stuff.
Grim and obviously moving testimony. If that is, if those allegations prove to be true, I mean, sounds like to me that would constitute sexual assault, being forcibly touched against your will, right? So, those, I don't know. I just don't. I don't know how to describe any of that except other than to say it's like deeply upsetting.
Well, yeah, and we heard it in her own words. I think she described it perfectly fine.
Now, this does lead into a slightly hilarious part of the story. So we're bringing it back to comedy. We've gone educational. We've done the educational part. We're going back to comedy. So Pauline Hanson, who you saw grinding her teeth there like she was, Donald Trump Jr. On a Monday morning, just sitting there grinding her teeth, shaking her head. Apparently said to Lidia Thorpe something to the effect of that Senator Thorpe herself was intimidating to other senators, to which Senator Thorpe apparently said, "Fuck off, Pauline," which personally I love. I think that's good. That is excellent.
That's great. She lived all our dreams.
Fuck off, Pauline. I say what I mean because I'm Lidia.
Pauline and Lidia have been coming to blows a couple of times, really, over the last sort of
metaphorical blows.
Well, there was a time where on camera that was kind of awkward, where Lidia came out and did the whole what was the speech that they were doing? It was the Posey Parker.
What's her name from the UK was there, the anti-trans rally sort of stuff.
So Lidia Thorpe came out, fell over in the mud next to Pauline, and Pauline just sort of like turned around with a glass of wine or something to that effect and was just kind of like, ooh, and sort of like walked away. It was like, there's like no empathy, like absolutely no empathy between these two people. It is. Yeah,
complete opposite ends of the political spectrum. Yeah. So, I don't know. That was just neither here nor there. I just, anytime that Pauline Hanson gets told to fuck off, we like to report it on the show.
Oh, and I mean, there should be T-shirts. Like, surely there'll be T-shirts of that moment in a matter of days.
Okay, so we go back to David Van.
Then, developed from there.
David Van makes a statement after having been, she doesn't name him in that statement, but obviously David Van is who she is talking about, as we mentioned with the moving officers thing. So this is his response.
Let me say this in the clearest possible terms. Senator Thorpe's allegations are concocted from beginning to end. Nothing that she has alleged about me is truthful. No such exchange occurred between us. There is no interaction that could conceivably resemble what she described today. Making false allegations in the Senate today is disgraceful and brings the Senate into disrepute. Her insincere commentary of her right to not complain to police evidences her consciousness of guilt that what she said is false. Because if it were true, she would not be cowering under the umbrella of parliamentary privilege to make such a scandalous and serious claim so carelessly
Senator
without
Van,
notice.
It's not appropriate in a statement to make a personal reflection upon another senator. I would ask that you withdraw that.
I withdraw that.
Thank you.
I've acknowledged publicly that
I love that you can just say whatever the fuck you want. It gets read into the record. It goes onto the cameras and they go, hey, got to withdraw that. And you go, I'll withdraw it. I sucked it out of your head.
But if you rewind back 30 seconds, you can listen to it over and over again on repeat.
Yeah, I mean,
forever.
it's the same with a court transcript, right? Like people say, like, blah 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 blah, objection, sustained. It's like, yeah, but
no, you didn't hear it.
We still heard it. We still heard it.
Tom, you meant to forget it. You meant to delete it from your brain.
Delete.
Ah, right. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's more. There's more.
I moved officers after an allegation from Senator Thorpe that I made her feel uncomfortable. That was what was put to me. An allegation that I denied then and deny today. I agreed to move officers to ensure the avoidance of any misconception. No incident was ever alleged by her. I agreed to protect myself against her irrational concerns and ensure the effective and smooth running of the Parliament.
You know how you just, people make allegations and you just move officers. That's how. So I hate this statement because it does kind of play into the hysterical women and why didn't she take her concerns to the police if something happened? I hate that.
I mean,
hate that.
Just dropping in just irrational,
these crazy irrational women.
Yeah, you know what'll really go over well with my my rebuttal to being accused of sexual harassment. Misogynistic terms.
Yeah, people love that.
That'll play great.
And if that is the case, so there's no dispute that he moved officers away from Lidia Thorpe. Okay, so there's no disputing that. We all agree on the facts there.
Yeah.
If that is the case, and if that was the Liberal Party's response to an allegation being put to them of what amounts to sexual assault, how is that an appropriate response? Like, if you're in a corporate workplace and you'd be like, so-and-so, I believe, sexually assaulted me, and they go, we're going to move their office way down the hall. Like, there won't be any office that they're next to where we put them on the other side of the office. But no, don't guys, we're taking this very seriously. Okay, we're putting their office way away from you.
Now in the corner office.
Now he's in the other corner office as opposed to the corner office that he was in before. So it's like, if that is true, how is that an appropriate response?
Yeah.
And like, there's also people on the other side of the office as well. Like, how is that you're not protecting them? You're not dealing with any kind of alleged concerns about safety in the workplace. Like, just playing 3-card Monty with alleged sexual assaulters doesn't solve the problem at all. Just ask the Catholic Church.
No, I think they're more looking at it being that it's a more personal beef between two individuals rather than dealing with a problem individual themselves. But no, I'm not defending the Liberal Party.
No, go ahead, Tom. You're saying
no, this is all bad.
Anyway, so there's more David Van.
I do not wish this matter to stay in the Liberal Party that I fought so hard for, so I accept that I will no longer be sitting in the party room. There should be and must be an investigation into these outrageous claims so they can be proved to be false. I will fully cooperate with investigators and answer any questions that they may have of me, and Senator Thorpe should do the same. I will answer any questions put to me by my own party as well. Finally, the allegation of intimidation by my lawyer is unfounded, and I table the letter that was sent at 5:01 p.m. yesterday. In that letter, Ms Giles demands that Senator Thorpe retract her allegation.
Senator Van, just resume your seat for a moment. Senator Wong?
Senator will need to seek leave to table.
Yes, I was aware the Senator needed to seek leave. I was going to remind him at the conclusion of his remarks. Please continue, Senator Van.
I will seek leave at the end. It should also be said that Ms Giles operates a specialist practice and has acted for Ms Brittany Higgins Senator Hanson Young, and presently acts for members of every political party in this chamber. That slur on her was irrational and unjustified and should also be withdrawn. I call on you, Madam President, to review the Senator's most recent statement, as I believe it reflected personally on me every bit as her allegations did last night after naming me last night or yesterday. And it should be withdrawn as per standing orders of the reflection on a Senator. I seek leave to table that letter.
Is leave granted? Senator Wong?
To the usual courtesies of the whips, looking at it.
Thank you, Senator Van, if you give it to the whips. Thank you for those comments.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Due process.
Isn't it funny how it's like you have to say all these magical words of like, I seek leave to tender the letter so sought and the letter hath been received. Like, yeah, I find it so funny.
Give me an inspiration check.
What day was this on? This was on Thursday. So on that same day, so Lidia Thorpe had made her comments on a Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday afternoon, and then into Wednesday night was the formal withdrawal and all that. And then, and Thursday morning, they both gave their statements.
It's been a hell of a 7 days in these last 2 days.
Between Wednesday night and Thursday morning, the other allegations that George spoke about before then came out and were given to Peter Dutton. So the most prominent of those, as we said, was former Liberal Senator Amanda Stoker, who said that Van had allegedly groped her. And she did so, I think, on Sky News as well, from memory. She gave an interview and it was very public.
Well, if it's on Sky News, it must be real.
So then I think by the time Van had got round to making his statement on Thursday, he'd been told by that point that he was no longer allowed to sit with the party.
You can't sit with us.
Party room.
You can't sit with us.
Near the party room. And then I think furthermore, it was like Peter Dutton was like, you can't sit in the party room. And honestly, I think you should quit.
Yeah. So that was on Friday.
He hadn't quit by then.
But Peter Dutton was saying, you should quit, bro. Like me. Peter Dutton is saying you should quit.
Me, a former Queensland cop who's seen a lot of shit, Peter Dutton, reckons you, David Van, should quit.
So Thursday, there's the two allegations, one unnamed, one was Amanda Stoker. He is no longer part of the party. Friday morning, they're walking in, Simon Birmingham's interviewed, and they're like, well, should he be part of the Liberal Party? And he's like, well, he's basically not now, is he? So maybe he should quit. And that was all inferred. Then it comes out mid-morning Friday that there was another allegation given to Peter Dutton over the course of the past 24 hours. There was three.
Is that number 4?
Well, 4 if you include Lidia, yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. I must have missed the count. I thought there were 3 total. Jesus.
No, there was one Lidia, 2, and then one more. And then after the 4th one, he quit. He quit the party entirely. He's still sitting in the Senate, but will be effectively the independent, right?
So he's now no longer in the party room, right?
Yeah.
He's no longer part of the Liberal Party, but he is still a senator.
Yeah, he's still a senator.
Okay.
And he quit because it was clear that from his point of view, he quit because he wasn't getting fair and due process was his opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So that was literally 3 weeks worth of news compressed into 3 days, basically.
Less than 3 days even. That's what, Wednesday afternoon to Friday morning? That's like 36 hours.
Well, it was Tuesday to Friday morning, but yeah.
Not since Icarus have we seen such a fast fall from grace.
That is a tiny amount of time. Like, that's why I remember when I first saw this, when it was first just Lydia's like use of parliamentary privilege, I was a bit like, okay, wow. So I guess this is what we'll be talking about on the show this weekend. It was, keeping an eye on it and like having a bit of a think. And then the story just kept changing so fast that, we're now just talking about he resigned. He's gone. He left the party.
So he refuses to quit at this stage. Adam, is this step 5 or it's cooperating with the inquiry? Is this step 4? So in the 12 steps of political death and revival that Adam wrote some years ago, at what phase is David Van currently at, would you say?
I'll have to look it up because I wasn't ready for this. Hang on, give me 1 second.
You
I can put it in the chat.
Post a screenshot.
I did. Here we go.
As of minutes ago, Van refuses to quit, but he is going to take leave. Okay? He's taking leave. He's not yet resigned.
He's resigned from... Yeah, so he's currently at step 7. He's just completed step 7 effectively.
Which is...
Now, if the matter goes away, if this is the end of it, he can go back, proceed immediately to step 12, which is basically where he gets to have another crack at it.
Yep.
But if it doesn't go away, the next step is step 8, which is resign from Parliament because you're about to commit a crime, basically.
Yeah.
Or have committed a crime, potentially.
It depends on the context.
7.
Yeah,
so he's officially in step 7, which is resign from your ministership and proceed to backbench because it looks bad in the papers.
Yes.
Which, is at.
It's literally exactly what's happening.
It's literally what's happening.
I think you wrote this in, 2018, Adam? And I think for the past 5 years...
to be clear, we joked about this. This was a group joke that we all had for many years.
But it's a group joke, which has become literal political fact.
I just decided to write it down. I was like, we need to agree on what the steps are.
Yeah, it was an in-joke that is now like a reference textbook for this podcast.
PR firms should have this posted up on the wall.
Yeah, this has been tried and tested. Like, it is consistent.
It was very consistent with the New South Wales Liberal Party, let me say. It was like biblical.
This is like Stephen Hawking's theory of everything. Like, we have found the method, like we have found the theory that has been hypothesized, investigated, and has been consistently proven to be true. Like, we have kind of got it.
So it's got to be the world record for advancing from steps 1 to 7 within the space of 4 days.
It's a massive
like
record.
That's got to be a land speed record for political fuckery.
Oh. And it's such, you're right. I mean, the hilarious thing about this, I mean, apart from the fact that it's very serious allegations.
It's very upsetting. Yeah.
And it's very upsetting. And it's like, how are we still, like, after the Jenkins report, how is this stuff still just bubbling to the surface? Why have we not already cleaned house with this, right?
Because I guess over years and years, women have not felt comfortable being I guess like
the whole point of the
Jenkins
report was to give them the point. I mean, she even Lidia Thorpe said that she spoke to Jenkins.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess like there'd be a lot of people in Parliament and in other workplaces and whatever that are apprehensive to be the Lidia Thorpe of the situation. No, I won't shut up. This is what happened to me in that moment, right? Like, and that's what's then brought 3 more allegations afterwards. Because
2 more.
2 more. So it was 3. Sorry, I thought it was
3 in
4.
total.
No, it was 4 total, I think.
So there was Amanda Stoker. There was Lidia Thorpe. One unnamed one. There was 2 unnamed ones.
And then there was another unnamed one.
Oh, I think I missed that.
There was 2. So
I missed the 4th one as well.
Let me go back through this article and I'll just check it.
But my point is...
This is why we need a timeline. We need a Charlie Day GIF with the whiteboard and all the red threads connecting. This is like, we're putting together a whole fucking timeline for this. Like,
so this is
when late Wednesday and Thursday morning, other allegations, plural, came out. So one of them was
Amanda Stoker.
And then Friday morning, Dutton confirmed a third person had brought allegations to him. So that's on top of Lidia Thorpe. So it's 4 total.
Is that right? I don't think I'd check the math on that.
Yes. No, I think that's correct.
I think that could go either way.
Because that was the thing. That's why he quit. He was like, oh, and another one. And then he was like, oh, and I quit.
Yeah. Anyway, but my point is that, I guess that even with all these inquiries, all these reports, all these like, let's have a nice good discussion as to how we can be better, there's still enough of a shitstorm from like, Twitter, the media, society generally at large, like your immediate circles as well as the outward discourse that really discourages being the Lidia Thorpe of the situation, of being the first one to stand up, call it out, and not take no for an answer when people tell you to shush, sit down, the adults are talking. Like, yeah, and then once someone is brave enough to do that, then yeah, a lot of other people feel more confident as well. So yeah, I think that's why we're still seeing this sort of shit happening, is because over many years, like there'll just be more people who haven't been willing to be the first person to stand up. Because if it doesn't go in your favor, society is terrible, and it drags.
We've got a culture of dragging women who talk about sexual assault experiences, and that's why I find the whole thing that David Van said so frustrating. Like, well, if it really happened, why didn't you go to the police at the time? It's like, well, because I think the 13%, I think it was, of women actually end up reporting sexual assault offenses because of how terribly we treat women who report sexual assault offenses. I think something like 1 to 3% actually end up with convictions
actually going anywhere.
Actually going anywhere. Like, we do not have a system which treats people well when they report sexual assault. So the idea of like, why didn't you report it at the time and take it to police is such a nonsense bullshit argument that we've heard.
Yeah.
Like, we've heard that so many times now. We've heard that with Me Too. We've heard that with Harvey Weinstein. We've heard it with all of these, like every single time we've heard that leveled against people who have levied, Bill Cosby, all of these people, when they've had sexual assault allegations leveled against them, they use the same old tired excuse. And like, surely we're past that now, where that's like an acceptable retort, because she did have contemporaneous accounts. She told, Kate Jenkins, she told, the leaders of the LNP. I don't know.
Even it happened in the workplace.
Yeah.
Or she said the Prime Minister, so Scott Morrison.
Well, she said the Prime Minister's office. I don't know if she directly had knowledge, but yeah, Scott Morrison's office turned around and said, we had no knowledge of it. It's like, no, you guys clearly did. Like, you asked him to move office and then they moved off. Like, there's contemporaneous accounts of stuff that happened at the time when this was reported. So I'm really struggling to, like, I believe in due process. I believe innocent until proven guilty and all that sort of stuff, but there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff happening right now. And I just think we should be wary of condemning women who come forward with stories of sexual assault and sexual harassment. I think we should take the time to listen to those accounts.
Yeah, 10,000%.
I guess this is a deeper conversation, which is...
Now, 3 dudes on a pod. Let's sort it.
Yeah.
Let's sort it out right now.
I guess the question being is, like, where there are things that may be subjective in terms of, like, cornered in a stairwell, as an example, does that mean that he was just standing behind her in a stairwell, or does that mean he actually physically pinned her and cornered her in a stairwell? Like, there are things like that where it's like that mud sort of sticks, but it may not necessarily been like. I guess there's a question around.
Like Amanda Stoker's allegation is way more like clear in that you grabbed me on the bum twice.
Yeah.
And then we had a conversation about it afterwards where I said, "Don't do that ever again." And you apologized, like that is a really you don't touch. I don't care what there's no other way to perceive that. You don't touch colleagues' bums. Like, that's a pretty straightforward one to my mind.
Not the 1960s,
right?
I guess the thing, but what's important here probably is that, besides whatever David Van's intent was, the fact was it made her feel uncomfortable. So we need to probably realize that as part of a broader. What do you call it?
I don't understand why this, Parliament needs a cultural awakening and that we need to drag them into the 21st century. Like, if you're working at any corporate institution and someone accused you of grabbing them, grabbing them on, that's it. You're fired. You're fired that day. Okay, like, it's not a question of like, we're just going to move the office down the road. Like, none of that. What's going on here then?
I mean, unless you're best mates with the boss or something, and then that's a whole nother discussion of powerful men in corporate culture.
Sure, I'm not saying corporate culture is fantastic at this, but like, I don't know. I feel there's
Williamson. What's the
plenty of examples to the contrary, but I'm just saying, like, any normal workplace has rules and ways of dealing with allegations of sexual harassment, which seem like, to me, a lot more rigorous than what we have in our nation's capital. That's what it seems like.
What was the David Williamson play about the sexual assault thing in the office?
In the office, I know there was.
I don't know that one.
True, no. I don't know. Anyway, but there's a really famous, it's an Australian playwright. It's reasonably well known, but he wrote a play. It's probably his most well known one, which I can't remember the name of. But it was literally about and there was a
Brilliant
film,
Lies.
Brilliant Lies.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Which kind of looks a bit dated now because he kind of paints the whole question is like, did she do it? Like, or did he do it? Like, is she just making this up for money? And then the playwright kind of
casts it as like, is it one? It's he said, she said. Who are we to believe?
Yeah.
Like nowadays, we're just like, obviously she said. Obviously her was supposed to believe. Like
that was like groundbreaking at the time, and that was what, late 80s, early 90s. I want to say in terms of when that came out.
Yeah.
Whereas now that's like, that's kind of dated a little bit, really, in terms of the general sort of vibe of it. But
I guess especially if it
96.
predates like, if it predates like mass internet communication.
Yeah, it does.
It's like, because it very much, because, my first rebuttal to a lot of that sort of stuff is, are they just doing this for money? It's like, no amount of money is worth the destruction.
But what money? There's no money. There's no money fairy, sexual assault fairy that comes and leaves 100 under your pillow if you level it. What money is there involved? Like, so the play was written in 93. It was made into a film in 96. Like, yes, that does predate internet culture pretty significantly. But yeah, it is interesting that, like, I'm sure at the time that would have been considered like, ooh, super progressive, cutting edge.
It was like, ooh, look at this edgy play.
Wow, so edgy. And now it's just like, obviously, believe the women who are telling you about these things that happen to them, obviously.
But who would make this up? Like,
why would you?
Crap that they're gonna have to go through. Like, nothing is worth that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a complete sidebar, but it's just interesting to sort of see the shift in culture, shall we say, over the last 20 years. I mean, we should move on because I do have to go in the next 10 minutes. But
okay. You got a hard stop, mate. Okay, that's fine. No worries.
Got a hard out.
We're doing a pod, but that's fine.
It's actually
big important man.
The other major thing that's happened in Parliament this week, which we'll briefly touch on, is after months and months and months of severe pressuring from the Greens to get their Housing Future Fund passed through the Senate. This week, Anthony Albanese at the Victorian Labor Conference awkwardly grabbed Dan Andrews' hand. If you've seen it, it's hilarious. But anyway,
I haven't seen that clip.
He grabbed he's like, let's shake our hands, and then he's like, no, let's pick our hands up and hold them in the air.
Stop, Anthony!
Terrible.
Stop it!
Dan Andrews like, what are you doing?
Commit to one.
But at that conference, the point being is they announced a $2 billion investment for social housing across Australia. So each state will get, I think it's something like $50 million each. And then the rest of it's allocated, I think, via population or something like that. And then they've got 2 years to work out what to do with it. And this is allegedly, well, it's not, according to Anthony Albanese, this is we weren't pressured into this.
We just found $2 billion in the couch.
Lining up the couch.
We took one of the interns here at Parliament. We turned him upside down and shook him by the pant legs, and $2 billion came out. So we're just going to spend that of our own accord, based on nothing, apropos of nothing. We're just going to spend that on social housing.
Yeah, we dragged ourselves kicking and screaming into this policy. No pressure from anybody.
And then
big smile, everybody's happy.
The Greens housing spokesperson, who's been very vocal over the last little while, Max Chandler Mather, was like, it was all us. It was completely us.
Well,
but also, we're still not going to vote through your thing because you're not agreeing to rent freezes.
I mean, it definitely seems like
negotiation, baby.
It definitely seems like Labor has dug up. They've rustled their, like the Greens have rustled their jimmies a little bit, and then they've had to dig up a couple of billion in order to put towards social housing, in order to win the Greens over and try and get them to support this Housing Future Fund policy. Yep. That seems like what's happened, right? So the fact that the fact that the Greens think that they can get more out of the Labor government is kind of good. I don't know why Labor's been criticising the Greens for not getting on board with this, because it's like, well, you said you didn't want a minority government, and then they're under no obligation to help you with your fucking policies. Like, they're a different party. So if you want their support, you got to give them shit that they want. That's what it means to deal with a crossbench.
That's kind of how this whole process works.
That's how this whole
process, like your whole industry operates this way.
Yeah. This is 100% what your job is negotiating.
This is your job.
And so
can't the government get enough crossbench support without?
Well, not without the Greens
or
and the coalition.
The Greens? And okay,
so the coalition's not going to help them because, like, coalition's like fuck them. you just cost us a senator. We're not going to help you with anything. And so the Greens are the ones that would need to be negotiated with for any package to pass the Senate. So I think it's good. This is great. This is exactly what the Senate is for. Is like, hey, if you want to get this thing passed, we're going to extract some concessions. Like, we may not get a rent freeze or any of those sorts of things out of it, because I think Labor is a little bit kowtowed by the capital owning class. They're not going to do anything like that. But if that means we can get a couple of bill for a social housing fund, which is not just like some future fund which goes into a pot into the ASX 200, and then we get some money and maybe something happens, yada yada yada. Step 3 profit. It's $2 billion that's actually going to go into building houses now. I think that's a fucking great result. Like,
in 3 years, probably.
Okay, but not going into a fund.
Work out what to do with it.
But not going into a fund, which eventually may end up in some housing 10 years from now. Like that.
It is a housing now fund rather than a housing
future fund. Exactly.
Yeah, and relatively now. Yes, you can't just snap your fingers and have more houses pop up, but
it's better than what they were proposing. And it's like, well, this is, people criticize the Greens and say they make the perfect the enemy of the good. And I was like, well, this is kind of good. This is a better result than we would have had if Labor just had a supermajority and they would have done not $2 billion worth of social housing. Like, I think this is better. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that they didn't do this in the first place, I think. But anyway, I mean,
but this is the thing. This is what we got to do.
They were going to be dragged into.
This is what we got to do with Labor. We got to fucking drag him. We got to drag him, kicking and screaming, to the things that they said that they were going to do during the election cycle. I don't know why it's this way. I don't know why Labor can't just go ahead and do the things that they said they were going to do. Why we need to get the Greens to give them a good kicking for 6 months before they decide to do what they said they were going to do. But this is what it takes. It takes us pressuring from the left in order to get the things that we want, that they said that they were going to give us. If you want our votes, bro, you got to give us the things that we asked for, and we're going to keep putting pressure on you until you do. The Morrison government, the Libs, we expect nothing from them because it's a barrel of monkeys, throwing turds at each other. We expect nothing from them.
We didn't vote for them, so we don't have you got our vote because you said you'd do stuff.
We voted for you because you weren't them, number one. Number two, you said you'd do the things that we want you to do. And so step 3, here's us making you do those things.
Yeah, step 3 is you do them.
Yeah.
There's no real talk around how they're going to do how it's all going to work. I mean, there's still a builder shortage and there's issues with costs in the construction sector and stuff. But it is good. I did hear something the other day where it was like, back in the 50s and 60s, 23% of all new homes in Australia were government funded, whereas now it's something like 2%. So we've definitely got some ways to go to make it back. And that was probably the only way you're going to get out of probably some of the problems that we've got at the moment is just to build more houses.
I'm not expecting a silver bullet, a one-size-fits-all solution to this problem, but I want to see government making an effort. I want to see someone fucking doing something. I want to see someone trying, giving a shit, and like Obama said, get caught trying. I want to see the government get caught trying to fix this problem. And if in 5 years we discover that $2 billion got us 5,000 houses instead of 10,000 houses, then we'll have that discussion then. But right now, I just want to at least give the appearance of them giving a shit and trying to do something about this.
Makes you feel warm inside.
Yeah.
It could be that. It could be the electric heater that I've switched on. Yeah. Something's making me feel warm somewhere.
Someone who also needs an electric heater because she's probably in a cold prison at the moment is Scotland's former leader, Nicola Sturgeon.
She was only held for 7 hours, so she's not been marched away and then
she's feeling cold in her soul. George is probably the distinction we'll go with there.
It's also pretty cold up there in Scotland.
It's just generally cold. Yeah,
cold. Yeah. She was arrested. So she was pretty. Nicola Sturgeon, for context, was Scotland's leader. for a reasonably long period of time, and she was leader during the whole Brexit situation. So had a lot of say during that. Was quite sort of vocal for not doing Brexit, as it were. She's part of the pro-Scottish, and she's very pro-Scottish independence is probably the other thing we should say as well. And she's part of the pro-independence Scottish National Party. Now, she has been, arrested and I guess released on bail with an investigation. They're looking at what happened to about £600,000, which is about 1.1 million Australian dollars, which was raised by the party campaigners in 2017, which may have been used for some things that weren't really
what they were being raised for.
Yeah.
So allegedly the funds were supposed to be ring fenced, right? Which means you can only use them for specific things because they were raised as a result of, fundraising efforts. And
she bought a Jaguar.
No, well, I don't know if that's what she did with it, but it's it may have been used for other purposes. So there was sort of rumors that it might have something to do with this because her husband was also. It's the way the Scots do things is they kind of like arrest you just for safe seas, and then take you in for questioning, and then they release you. In this case, her husband, their treasurer. At the SNP were all arrested, questioned for several hours, and then released without charge. So it's unclear yet as to whether charges will proceed, but she has been named as a person of interest in this inquiry. So, and her house was searched as a result of all of this. So there were whispers in Feb when she resigned that it was in relation to this sort of like ongoing police action inquiry situation. Because it did seem like she'd resigned all of a sudden out of nowhere in Feb after being a pretty popular political figure. So, unclear as to whether there was any sort of advance warning, and that's why she resigned. But I mean, the upshot of all of this is that in the next election cycle, it means that the Scottish National Party may not do as well as they've done in years past, and that could be advantageous to the Labour Party. Labour used to have a big stronghold in Scotland. So with recent events, with, the whole sort of musical chairs between Theresa May and Boris Johnson and what was the other one?
Rishi Sunak.
No, the one who was the woman who was there before Rishi Sunak. She was there for 45 days. Pork markets.
I've already forgotten.
Yeah. Pork market.
How have we forgotten old pork markets?
We've already forgotten pork markets name.
Oh my god,
Liz Truss.
No. Liz Truss. Yeah.
Liz Truss. That
she's
whole
a measurement of time
for one Liz Truss being a month and a half. So she was in Parliament for 45 days, tanked the whole economy, and then was kicked out unceremoniously, along with Kwasi Kwarteng, her treasurer, for trying to like neo-lib the economy times 10. So they got kicked out, and then Rishi Sunak. And so the opinion polls of the Conservative Party have been like demonstrably low since then. They've been sort of creeping up in time since, but Keir Starmer is still who's the leader of the Labour Party in the opposition, not a particularly popular figure at this stage. They still need to refine some of their messaging around what they're going to do that would be different compared to the Tories, compared to the Conservatives. But if the Scottish National Party falls out of favour in Scotland, which we may be witnessing, then that could be to Labour's benefit. They could pick up a couple of seats. That might be one of the things that helps them get into government in the next election cycle. So we'll have to waiting with bated breath to see how this all unfolds. But I don't know. It's always seemed like Nicola Sturgeon was one of the good ones. I don't like it.
I guess we'll see if she continues to be or not, depending on what the findings of this is.
Only time will tell.
Very hard for us to sit here on a podcast preaching ethical values and people that embody them.
Not for me.
Those people themselves don't follow them.
Yeah. So speaking of coming back from the political dead, there was one woman who came back from the actual dead. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that story, Adam?
Oh, look, it was doing the rounds this week. This was groundbreaking news on Monday before everything happened.
Before the 7 days, which were Tuesday through Thursday.
Yeah, yes, the liberal scandal advent calendar that's been the last 4 days.
Yeah. You open a door, you get 5 chocolates.
You get a chocolate fist that punches you in the face every time you open a door.
Yeah.
So in Ecuador, people were astonished at a funeral when a 76-year-old woman who was declared dead at a hospital at her funeral started knocking on the coffin during her wake.
Holy shit! Like, it's so. Oh, that's terrifying in two ways. Like, one, just the fear of, like, you know, being in a coffin, like buried alive, is, I think, a very common fear, but it's one that gives me the heebies. I have a bit of claustrophobia sometimes. But then, two, like, just being at a funeral and hearing knocking coming from the casket, I could not imagine anything more terrifying.
There is a bunch of Hollywood TV writers that are going, yeah, and what happened then?
Holy shit.
It definitely sounds like a Sam Raimi film, like 100%.
Yeah, the question is, do you open the coffin? I guess they did open the coffin, spoilers.
Of course.
It's another hellmouth. Oh, not again. Told you we should have opened it.
Yeah, just open it and you just see their hand, just grab them by the throat. Like, why'd you put me in here? But yeah, like, insane that this woman was alive in the coffin. Quite terrifying. But I do believe she is now, in fact, dead, though, right? That's the end of this story.
So they rushed her to the hospital. She was in ICU for about a week, I think. And then I've heard that she passed away, I think, today.
Yeah, so that's the bummer part of the story of the, like, well, no, she's dead for real.
She was pretty sick. She just, like, wasn't quite. Like, I'm not dead. He's getting better.
It reminds me, someone was telling me a story recently. I won't drop names or anything, given this story's kind of a bit, but yeah, when someone working in, like, ER in a hospital or something, like, peeked into a room to check on a patient who was an older woman and was just like, oh, they look dead.
Can you imagine?
Oh, no. And, like, just looking like that looks like a dead old woman. And, oh, man, I'm the person who's found them. There's so much paperwork involved when you're the person. I have to get the doctor. Like, oh, crap. Maybe I can kind of jimmy my way out of this, being like to the nurses, hey, has anyone checked on Mrs. Blah, blah, blah recently? Nah, not really. I'll come have a look. And you both pop in and the nurse says, oh, that's a dead woman right there. It's like, yep, oh, God. Okay. And then they went like, well, I don't know, maybe I'll just check. Shake them a bit, nothing.
Give them a prod.
Like, pinching toes and things, being like, oh, God, no. Oh,
the irony is
I don't want to stay here for this
10
long.
other nurses looked in and they looked at this and thought, that's a dead lady, and thought, that's too much paperwork. I'll leave it for the next person. The woman's actually been there for 3 weeks. She started decomposing.
Then, how this story ended was then one of them thought, oh, just like, I do physio sort of stuff, so I'll start doing these, like, chest massages, and just did this chest massage, and suddenly the woman went and just woke. She was just in a really deep sleep.
Oh, like, my God.
Super, super deep. It's like, oh, thank God you're alive. Like, but I love that the concern that they died.
Too much paperwork.
This is so much paperwork. Anyway, but yeah, it reminds me of this. Like, that woman at least didn't get all the way to in casket, in funeral before waking up.
Surely
at least they
there's
woke her up in the hospital.
Heart monitors, and what happened to all these, like, medical shows like Grey's Anatomy where it's like, beep. It's like, oh, they're coding code blue. There's like 10 people, doing chest compressions and, doing a ventilator and all this sort of stuff.
Maybe that's more like ICU kind of protocol rather than either just emergency room or regular hospital
Surely
room.
Everyone's hooked up to a heart monitor.
But it might not be hooked up to a ping the front desk it goes
I think a machine goes ping when heart stops beating is one of the first things that a hospital should be invested in.
Well, yeah. I would love to think so. So when I heard this story, I was a bit like, it wouldn't have registered that she was dead. I don't know, but yeah,
there's apparently going to be an investigation into how they issue death certificates as part of.
Well, quickly, by the sounds of it, too quickly.
It either sounds like. Yeah, they can either do it too quickly or the process is too long and they like to just skip it. It sounds like if it's too difficult to be, all the paperwork involved makes them just go, yeah, she's probably dead.
Well, this is
That'll
where
speed up this process.
This is where all this, like, sort of mythology of vampires came from in the 17th and like 18th century, right? Was that people were, exactly. They would put, so they'd have a little thing in the coffin where you could like reach up and ding a bell because so many people were getting buried alive prematurely prior to dying that it was like a problem, people getting buried alive, so they put bells in.
You pull a string inside the coffin.
Pull a string and it'll ding in the cemetery and someone can come and dig you out. Now, I don't know if that's a real thing. if that happened a bunch or if that was just like an urban myth.
It's a very good system, to be fair. Like it's clever.
Start getting some bells. We're going to need to bring the bell industry back, local manufacturing, okay, jobs and growth. I personally would feel more comfortable if there was a bell in my coffin. I think it'd be pretty bad to be buried alive.
I think that's a missed market as well. As part of funeral packages, you could be like, okay, so also part of the package is you'll be buried with the little button that when you press the button, the Bluetooth speaker at your coffin makes a sound in case you're buried alive. Nice. What sound do you want it to make? It's like, I want it to be a really loud, like, oh, or something like, you can pick the sound.
I want it to be Little John. Yeah.
I'd like a line direct to the Macca's drive-through just to get the first meal ready for my resurrection.
Maybe maybe DJ Khaled. We dead music.
We the best music players. Loudly.
Speaking of the best music,
the best podcast. Yeah, sorry, Adam's a big important man. He's got more important things to do. Sorry, mate. Sorry, we
a light show.
Sorry, we had to bother you with your bloody regularly scheduled podcast. Sorry, didn't realize we had a big man podcasting with us today. Big important man.
Big deal, buddy. Big deal.
On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social media that do or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and motherflippin' TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
And you can follow me down to the morgue in Ecuador, where I'll be doing some investigations personally on how to improve the death industry.
Grim! Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.
Wasn't thinking, and then that was the best I could come up with. So I think the beers are on me, boys.